This nibble originally aired on RSBANDB Update, episode 867, Binding Hitboxes. Enjoy. The Kal'gerion demons. They say these have fallen flat in almost all scenarios, only seeing usage when paired.
Wrong, but okay.
When paired, only seeing usage when paired with the fractured staff of Armadyl. So they're very, very wary of overbuffing it, given the strong synergy with any future critical strike buffs. As a result, we've decided to address the high input playstyle that is unappealing to a large proportion of the players and give it a small passive effect. So first, they come in with a bug fix where the Kal'gerion's special attack was incorrect given its damage rating, and they've updated it to use the intended attack speed, which increases the attack speed from every 4.8 seconds to every 2.4 seconds, so it's going to be twice as fast. For the critical scroll effect, the duration has been increased from 15 to 60 seconds, and the familiar has a new passive of giving a 1% critical strike chance to players using a Kal'gerion familiar.
So this is just a straight up mage buff. I think, as we discussed in the last combat end of review, we knew that Magic desperately needed more buffs, and it was a rough spot, and it's super important we prioritize bringing Magic up to date with Melee, for example, which we know to be the strongest style. So I think this is kind of wild. I guess
like with this,
cool.
We're looking at a total 6% buff from this familiar if you use the scroll for 60 seconds.
Correct. So it is easily the best familiar with Magic. I think it's the best familiar even without FSOA, assuming that you're using Insight, Fear, and Tsunami rotations.
Okay.
Basically, I tested this. It basically feels like your adrenaline never drops below 100 when you're inside a spec after with a Tsunami Insight Fear rotation. So you just get to Armadyl Battle Staff spec over and over and over and over, and it's glorious. So this is just a straight up just big mage buff. Anyone who's using Magic should use this familiar. It's very cheap in terms of the scrolls per hour because you only can use this. The spec lasts for 60 seconds. So you're only using it once a minute.
So are you going to... So would anybody use this to get this 6% crit chance in exchange of a Ripper Demon? Who would use that?
Magic, anyone using Magic.
Anyone using Magic, okay.
Well, assuming you have Insight Fear.
Right.
Assuming you're using Insight Fear. If you're not using Insight Fear, then certainly do not use this familiar because it is very expensive.
And you feel that having the Fractured Staff of Armadyl is not a requirement, as many feel it is for this? Okay.
It's not a requirement, but it makes it even more ridiculous. So with this familiar, it's very possible to do right around 1.4 mil damage per minute inside of an FSOA spec.
That 10 is 1.4 million damage a minute.
So by comparison, over 5, that's about what Melee does over 5 minutes. Magic can now do that per minute. Obviously, that's only inside of an FSOA spec.
Right. Hence why
it's not.
This is that critical build that we were talking about before.
Yeah, and it's just easier to use than it was before because instead of being 15 seconds, it's 60 seconds, and so it lasts for the whole duration of your Sunshine plus Extra. And so the way you would use this is just every time you Sunshine, you pop on the spec and just go off.
Where would you use this?
I tested this everywhere. Anywhere and everywhere.
Anywhere and everywhere you use Magic. Okay. Because I know earlier in the week you were thinking it might have been more limited.
No, anywhere and everywhere that you use Magic.
What did your
test for, I guess, Slayer.
What did your test tell you?
So I did some tests with Magic without FSOA. For me, it felt a lot stronger than a Ripper Demon and much cheaper to use by comparison because the only way the Ripper Demon is as good as this is if you're spamming summoning pots. Those are expensive. Right. Plus you're spamming scrolls, which are expensive. The pouch itself has gotten a lot. It hit 450k a couple days ago. I don't know what it is now.
Anybody who had those in their dungeon would have been having a fun time Monday.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't AFK them anymore because of the update, but you used to be able to AFK those in your dungeon. But yeah, it's really strong. I also tested it with ranged.
That was going to be my
And
next question because all my high-end combat gear is in range, so I'm wondering, is there anywhere that this would benefit me?
yeah, so I think that if you are spamming Ripper Demon scrolls with ranged, Ripper Demon is much better. In places where I think that it is comparable, but probably not quite as good if you are using scrolls but not spamming them with potions, but not as good. And then in places that cannot be hit by familiars, it is, I think, from my limited testing, places like Virago, I preferred the Kal'gerion Demon to Ripper Demon. So if you were going to say do Araxor, I would definitely prefer the Kal'gerion Demon over the Ripper Demon for a place like Araxor.
Interesting.
Yeah. And in places where you need the accuracy of a Nihil, then a Nihil is still going to be the way to go. But Araxor...
Nex and where else, basically?
Nex and Virago are basically the two places. Telos, kind of, but Telos is much better to use a damage familiar because, one, you're close enough. Two, if you're using magic, you've got the staff. You could also hammer it. Araxor, you have 100% accuracy these days. I think a lot of people still use a Nihil at Araxor because for the longest time you didn't have 100 at Araxor. These days you do, or it's so close to 100 that I think I would much prefer Kal'gerion Demon. The other thing with the Kal'gerion Demon and ranged is that if you're doing kills where prior to entry you're doing a natural instinct incendiary shot rotation on a dummy to build up the critical buff, then I think that a Kal'gerion Demon might be as good as a Ripper Demon, if not better.
And once again, though, we're talking about a very, very niche circumstance and something that you need to plan out and is very, very hard to do. So I guess the way I'd end this at the end of the day, of all these familiars, which one of these is the ordinary person going to get the most use out of? Which is Tanis going to get the most use out of?
Well, if Tanis wants to learn how to set up AFK God Wars Dungeon 2, then the Reaver, for sure. But it's not like the change affected like that was already true before Monday's update. I think that the most relevant buff is certainly the Kal'gerion Demon. It was already the best familiar to use with magic, and now it's even better than it was before. So they're basically every single record that has been attempted to be broken since Monday has been broken by a significant amount of time with the Kal'gerion Demon.
You can find full episodes of RSBANDB Update right here on this YouTube channel. If you found this video useful or just enjoyed it, like and subscribe, or leave a comment.